That was Pink there, and Mr. President, is that right?
That's right, Dear Mr. President.
Dear Mr. President.
It's a letter to George Bush, who was the president at the time, and she's accusing him of not understanding what it's like to be an ordinary person in the US at the time. So, yeah,
So if you've just tuned in for the second half of the show, this is Christy who's joined me today, a local novelist and Byron historian, really.
Byron Nutt.
Byron Nutt. A Byromaniac. Byromaniac. And like I say, you've wrote your own book called Framed.
That's right.
We've just been on about that before the news and everything. And also, today's show is mainly based around Lord Byron, or the sixth Lord Byron as he's known, being like the first rock star, or the first person to sort of bring that sort of lifestyle to the fore at the time of his...
Yeah, there hadn't really been... I mean, there have been other poets and other writers and other famous people. I mean, for example, Lord Rochester, who was a poet during the 17th century, he was famously very wayward, and it was a libertine, and literally that was a term that was coined specifically to describe him. But he wasn't... like Lord Byron, in the sense that Byron had so many different aspects to his personality. It wasn't just the sexual appetite and so on that he was known for. He was known for his fantastic poetry. He was known for being political and standing up for the underdog. And he had far more complicated sort of aspects to his personality, I think.
Yes, a lot of that comes through in his poetry, but mainly his letters that he wrote. I mean, they sort of shown his true personality.
His letters really do show his personality, and also his journals as well that he wrote. He wrote several journals for example, when he went abroad and he was travelling through the Alps. This was the second time he went out of the country, and really he was exiled after the divorce from Lady Byron. His marriage had broken down, and he wrote journals to his sister, or half sister, Augusta, and it's full of just fascinating information about the places that he'd been to, and the friends that he was with, and it really shows just how much of a gregarious and friendly person he could be. But on the other hand, he was very much a contrast of behaviour. He could be really generous and kind. He could also be very cruel and very mean. And he was a very complicated sort of person, I think. Do
you think he had sort of like multiple personalities?
Almost, yeah. So he certainly suffered with some kind of, I would say probably he'd be diagnosed nowadays as bipolar. One minute he was, really, really friendly and outgoing and extremely lively and staying up all night writing, not eating, not sleeping. And then the next minute he'd be plunged into deep sort of melancholy, as it was called in those days, depression and feeling miserable and all the rest of it. So he did swing from one to the other quite a lot. But all his friends and people that knew him really well, people who were very close to him, his friends like Hobhouse, John Cam Hobhouse, and Scroop Davis, and his great friends like that, described him as being a really friendly person, a really nice, hilarious, great sense of humour, very, very... he would definitely be somebody to go out round town with at night,
So he's definitely one of the lads then.
He was, yes.
So I know one of his friends died, didn't he, around the same time as his mother. Did he? He fell in a ditch, didn't he? Something like that, drowned.
There were the two of his friends died within quite a short space of time. His mother died while he was on his way back from travelling abroad in 1809, and his friend Charles Matthews died. He drowned apparently in the Cam, even though he was supposed to be quite a good swimmer. And there is a theory that he'd actually killed himself because he was gay, and at the time it was illegal. And you could be hung for sodomy in those days. So pretty terrible.
Dark times, really, very dark times.
And another friend of his, John Edelston, who was his I would say he was in love with this lad when he was at Cambridge, was a chorister, and apparently Byron climbed into the window of one of the chapels at Cambridge to listen to John Edelston singing, because he said he had the most beautiful voice. and he tore his gown, because in those days when you're at university you had to wear the university gown all the time. And he said he tore his gown because he climbed into the window to listen to John Eddleston singing. It was interesting as well because he died the same year. He died in 1811, so there were these 3 deaths very close together. And Byron was on his own at Newstead Abbey. All of a sudden he was on his own in the world, and I think it really sort of hit him. And then he became very, very famous soon afterwards.
Yeah.
So
the people he could have shared it with or wanted to share it with weren't there at the time.
Yeah, he did have some of his friends up to Newstead at Christmas that year, and had a bit of a riotous do, I think, but to sort of chase the blues away.
I think when I was doing my research, I was reading up about Byron. He wasn't always there at his soirees, was he? He used to organise a lot of parties and things like that, and sometimes he used to sort of duck out of the festivities. And I think at one, I don't know if it was a birthday party or a Christmas party, he ducked out, and I think he went to Southall or Southall, somewhere like that. But the people who was there made the most of it. There was so many carats of wine that they drunk. There was a list of what they drunk. The port, the brandy, the many barrels of beer.
Pints of it.
It was amazing. And I thought, in today's money, it's a rough guesstimate, you'd be looking at sort of 10, 20 grand.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? For the banquet that everybody else feasted on. Yeah, he went somewhere. In fact, he went to London.
Yes,
I think he went to London.
It was his birthday party. In 1812, he didn't celebrate it at Newstead Abbey, but the servants and the people at Newstead celebrated in his absence. Byron was extremely generous, I think, to most of the people that he knew. I think his default setting was to be generous, but if somebody crossed him, then he would just cut them out of his life, and wouldn't have anything more to do with them. But he had the estate, the Newstead estate. He owned a lot of land around Newstead, and he used to go and collect the rent from the Red Lion pub in Hucknall. Yeah. And he'd ride over to Hucknall and collect the rent from there. But to sort of sweeten the occasion a little bit, he'd put on a spread for the local people, so that when they came in to bring their rent money to him, they were sure of having a good meal. They were going to have a feast and a bit of a booze up.
So it weren't that mad, bad and dangerous to know.
No, he wasn't as bad as people make out. I mean, he was in some aspects. He was quite cruel to his wife, and he was quite bad in some respects. He did end up with a pretty demonic reputation.
Okay, so normally about this time on the show, 5:15, I do play a song for the lovers. So obviously Byron had many. So for all you lovers out there, I've chosen this track this week, and it's an absolute beauty. This is Eva Cassidy and Fields of Gold. That was a song for the lovers there. Eva Cassidy and Fields of Gold. Beautiful track there. Joining me in the studio today is Christy, and she's a local novelist, Byromaniac, and everything in between, really. A very knowledgeable woman as well. We've just been talking about Byron and some of the things that we can't really say on air, but yeah, he was quite a bit lad, wasn't he?
Yes. Let's just say that what he earned by his pen, he spent on other things. On other things, that's right, yeah. And he indulged himself, shall we say, with the young ladies in certainly in Venice. That was where he was his most demonic. Right. I've been to Venice. It's a lovely place. I've never been. Never been. I really would love to go. Really nice. It's quite expensive, apparently, but I would love to go. It is expensive, yeah. I mean, I went as a teenager, so I didn't really appreciate it then. It's only now looking back, you think, quite interesting. Place, yeah. So anyway, we was talking about Byron being like the rock star of his day, living the lifestyle and things like that, and you chose this next track. Yeah, this next track is about being slightly crazy. And I think Byron was definitely mad, bad and dangerous to know. But this next track really describes that what one person thinks is mad, another person thinks is just being free and living their life the way they want to. So this is Dizzy Rascal. Bonkers. So there we go, that was Bonkers by Dizzy Rascal. Joined today by Christy in the studio on Lucas Jackson's Random Slam on acaciaradio.com and 1287 AM. And we're comparing Byron to
Well, a rock star, really, aren't we?
Yes.
And we've chosen tracks, and you were saying that track there is like one person saying that they're bonkers, and the person saying, no, I'm not. I'm living my life how I want to live my life, sort of thing.
Definitely.
But we know Byron. He was a bit of a bad lad, weren't he? Mad, bad, and dangerous to know, as he got labelled by.
He was.
Lady Caroline Lamb, I think.
That's right. Yes, it was Caroline Lamb who called him that. When he first met her. He was at a party at Melbourne House, and there was the Melbourne House set with a load of people who used to go to these soirees, parties, assemblies at the various different big houses in London. And the reason that he ended up going to these events was because of he was so famous. It wasn't just because of his title that he was allowed to go along to these parties. And when he first met Caroline Lamb, she saw that there were so many women sort of swooning around him that it was too much competition, so she just snubbed him and walked off. And Byron was sort of a bit taken with this, really. He was intrigued because she wasn't throwing herself at him like everybody else was, so of course he pursued her, and they had an affair. And eventually, though, it got a bit sour because Caroline Lamb was very jealous and possessive, and you couldn't really be that with Byron. There's one thing that was guaranteed to send him running in the opposite direction.
It's funny you should say that, because I was, like I say, you've chose a few tracks, I've chose a few tracks and that, and I found this Elvis Costello track, and it's called My Lovely Jezebel.
Right.
The reason being, like, Lady Caroline Lamb was one of Byron's more well-known lovers, as we've just said, and she gave him the famous quote of "mad, bad, and dangerous to know," albeit more than likely it was more of a self-diagnosis of her own traits.
Definitely, she was extremely crazy. Byron said this about her. Said she was absolutely, she was just insane. She couldn't be trusted. No,
and it's got the lyrics in this song. She attracts dark rumours and travels in blue and other humours. Each time she walks in the room, brings in much more than you'd assume. And it seems biographical of her personality, I suppose. And another line: she neglects you and then ransacks you so very well. And the verse. This one, and she attracts mad intentions, she distracts all of my attentions with her ways and her wild inventions. The facts of life they forgot to mention could also be like a view from Byron's perspective.
I think so.
And although reading between the lines, like I say, the relationship wasn't so much more as a love story, more of a status and a bragging rights sort of thing.
Yes, she was. I think Caroline Lamb really saw Byron as a bit of a conquest, and I don't think he particularly liked to be seen like that. I think he preferred to be the one doing the conquering rather than
the
conqueree. Rather than the conqueree. It also said that there was one night when he was talking to another lady, and Caroline Lamb got so jealous that she actually cut herself, tried to cut her wrist. She bit through a wine glass.
Really?
She was slightly insane, I think.
Bonkers.
Yeah, she was bonkers, but bless her. I think she really did love him. I think she was very passionate about him, but he called her a little volcano.
Yeah,
so that she had lava in her veins. So.
Okay, so we'll have that track now. This is Elvis Costello and My Lovely Jezebel. Elvis Costello there and My Lovely Jezebel. I'm joined in the studio today by Christy, and we've been talking about your book. And where can you get your book from, by the way?
You can buy it from online. You can buy it from Waterstones online. You can buy it directly from the Open Books website. So you can buy it from them. That's www.open-bks.com.
Yeah.
Or you can buy it directly from me when I do any events, or you can, if you send me a message on Facebook, and you can pay via PayPal and I can post it to you. So you just need to send me your address and I can send you a signed copy. Because of course, if you download it from the internet, I can't sign a Kindle version.
No, true.
The paperbacks.
Right. So what we've got next lined up?
You can also buy it. Sorry, you can also buy it from Amazon as well, and also from Kobo as well. So.
From Kobo.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So we're just like I say talking about Madonna. One of your tracks you've chosen.
Yes, that's right.
This is it Swim?
Yes, it is. It's called Swim. The reason I've chosen this track is because I think that certainly nowadays as a woman, Madonna is probably the closest equivalent to Byron. She's been accused of being dangerous and satanic and all the rest of it, and her lifestyle and has been criticised, and even though she's got a charitable organisation to look after children in Malawi, she's been criticised for that, and she's accused of self-aggrandisement and so on, but she's put $2 of her own money for every dollar that anybody's donated towards building schools in Malawi, and there's a project to make sure that girls are protected and that they get the chance to go to school as well, because there's not, children aren't really
the equality in it,
and there's not much equality there. So, this song is called Swim, and Byron was a great swimmer, and I think really this song just describes about getting away from all the terrible things that are happening in the world and just being able to cope with it and being able to swim through it and have the strength in yourself to be able to deal with all the backlash and all the problems that are going on. Yeah.
Okay, I can see where you're coming from with that one. So what we'll do is we'll have this. This is Madonna and Swim. And, like I say, we'll be right back after this with some more Byronic music. That was Madonna and Swim. You chose that one. I keep saying Christy. It's Christy Fearn. If anybody wants to know the full name, Christy Fearn, who's joined me today in the like a bit of a Byron special, really.
It is. It's been a lovely Byron special. It's been great fun. Yes, that song was by Madonna and it's called Swim. Byron was an absolutely fantastic swimmer. As I said, he was a great sportsman despite having a lame foot. He swam the Hellespont between Greece and Turkey. Well, it was all Turkey in those days, but he swam from one side to the other, from Sestos to Abydos, and it's a few miles. It's a good few miles. So he's swam that all in one
2 miles across, but according to the flow of the current and everything like that, you swim around 4 miles.
Yes, 4 or 5. Yeah, it can be really, really hard work. He did that. And he was really, really good friends with the other poet Shelley. So Byron wasn't just a poet on his own. And when he lived out in Italy, and certainly when he lived out in where was it, Livorno, near Leghorn, and also Shelley visited him in Venice. And they were really, really good friends, and they went sailing in Geneva when Byron lived at the Villa Diodati, which is where Mary Shelley, that was Shelley's wife at the time, she wrote Frankenstein, and she was only 19 when she wrote that. Well, she was 18 really when she first wrote it. So
that's quite a feat.
It's incredible.
One of our presenters, Evermore Evil, he does a heavy metal show, funnily enough. He's quite a big Byron fan, and anything to do with gore and guts and
horror.
Things like that, and horror. But he is really, really knowledgeable on that side of things.
Yes.
The really old, like I say, like Byron and things like that, all the way up to modern day stuff.
All the gothic, gory stuff. Yes. He was really good friends with Shelley, and sadly Shelley drowned, and Byron never taught him to swim, and I think that was probably one of his biggest regrets, because he possibly would have survived if he'd known how to swim.
I know together there was quite a team, weren't they?
Oh yes, definitely, and they were very political as well. They were admirers of the earlier poet Coleridge, who was still around, and Coleridge actually outlived both of them. And I think that they were really, I would say, the children of the Revolution, as in the French Revolution. Coleridge was alive during the French Revolution, and he was very influenced by it. And Byron and Shelley looked up to Coleridge, so they were, I would say, the children of the Revolution. Which
I think is one of your tracks you've chosen next.
This is the next track. Yes, it's by T-Rex, and it's called "Children of the Revolution."
Children of the Revolution. So here we are, T-Rex, "Children of the Revolution."
AcaciaRadio.com and 1287 AM. Doing it just for you.
So there we have it, T-Rex and Children of the Revolution. I'm joined by Christy Fearn here. You chose that because of Byron Shelley and, like you say, the I forgot his name.
Coleridge.
Coleridge, that's it.
Yes,
Coleridge.
they were admirers of Coleridge, and Coleridge, throughout the whole of his life, really was very radical and very influenced by the French Revolution. And the authorities at the time were very, very worried that there'd be a similar revolution in this country.
Yeah.
So they were considered a little bit dangerous.
But a few other things. I mean, Byron, his poetry, like I said, the letters and everything like that he wrote. Obviously, very poetic, very talented, and it definitely had that persona of a rock star, which is what we're liking him to today. And you're saying he weren't very far away from controversy or anything like that, was he?
He was a very controversial figure, not least because the reason that his marriage broke down was because he had an affair with his half-sister. They hadn't been brought up together, and they'd not met that many times throughout their lives. She went to a speech day at Byron's school, which was at Harrow, and then after that they used to converse with each other. They used to write to each other while he was at university and so on. But then they met up again as adults, and I think what it was that Byron saw really something in Augusta that was like himself, because she was another Byron. She was, she was the only member of his family that he was close to. He lost both his parents, so. But they had different mothers, so they were only half brother and sister. But yeah, that's the reason why his marriage broke down. Annabella, Byron's wife, felt very isolated because of Byron and Augusta having such a close relationship, and he ended up divorcing her and moving abroad. So yes, there was a lot of scandal about it at the time. There were even cartoons in the newspapers about what happened. So. It was always somewhere in the thick of it, I suppose, really, with his life. But like Paul Weller, he didn't write this track. He's covered this track. Black is the Colour. It's an old Celtic ballad that's been played worldwide in many music genres and things like that. And Byron had like Scottish Celtic links with his mother. Was Scottish. That's right. Yeah. The lyrics come across as a modern form of poetry to me. Maybe Byron would have been as good a songwriter and lyricist as he was a poet. Do you think? I think so. Yeah. So he did write poetry that was lyrics. He wrote Hebrew melodies, which were lyrics for. Middle Eastern sort of music. He also wrote a song for the Luddites. This was much later on, but the Luddite activity was still going on while he was abroad, and he wrote the song for the Luddites. So yeah, a lot of his poetry is very lyrical. One of his most well-known poems, "We'll Go No More A-Roving," that to me is like a ballad, and you could quite easily set that to music.
Well, actually, I'm going to play a Nick Cave song after this one, and that's called "Right Now I'm A-Roaming."
Oh, lovely.
So if you listen to some of the lyrics, it does tie in there. It's like to say, we've all been in situations of being somewhere and putting things off until we get back home and things like that, obviously with his travelling and everything like that. But Byron, whilst on his travels, obviously, he lived the rock and roll lifestyle. Women, wine, song, poetry and fast living inspired the works of Childe Harold's Pilgrimage and Don Juan, to name a couple of his writings there.
His really long poems. Obviously, to say Don Juan, it's pronounced Don Juan. But the rhymes rhyme with
that's
Juan.
Right, Juan.
So
But yeah, there's no substitute for experience, and Byron had plenty, that's for sure. But returning home is not always pleasant, as he found out when arriving back in Britain to find his mother at death's door and too late to be at her side.
That's right,
in some respects.
And when he went abroad in 1816, he never came back.
That's right.
While he was in Messalongi during the Greek War of Independence, he actually gave instructions that if he died there, he wants to be buried in Greece. Ended up that his heart and lungs apparently are still in Greece, but the rest of him is in Hucknall. In the church at Hucknall.
So what we'll do is we'll play Black is the Colour, and then after that, Right Now I'm A-Roaming by Nick Cave, a couple of tracks that I chose. See what you think to the link to Byron and that there.
Lovely.
Well, this has been Lucas Jackson's Random Slam on AcaciaRadio.com and 1287 AM. I've been joined by Christy Fearn today. She's been telling us all about her new book that you've written, which is called Framed, I believe.
That's right, yeah. And it's about the Nottingham Luddites.
That's right. Are you doing anything in the future?
Yes, the next thing I've got coming up is on the 26th of August at Ruddington, the Framework Knitters Museum. Come along, because there's going to be a lovely garden party, and I'm going to be there probably signing my books.
Yeah.
And but there's going to be lots of lovely things happening, lots of nice stalls, food and drink, and hopefully some folk music as well. So it should be a really good day out. So come along, and hopefully the weather will be as lovely as it is today.
Yeah, a bit of culture.
Bit of culture.
Bit of culture. But thanks for coming in, and like I say, anytime you want to come back, just drop us a line, and you're welcome to come anytime you want.
Thank you very much, Lucas.
No worries. No worries. Anytime. Pleasure. I've also played in today with Guns N' Roses and Night Train, and the reason I played in with that particular track is because it's from the album Appetite for Destruction, which ties in with Byron and all his cohorts.
Definitely.
They all had an appetite for destruction, but also that album is 26 years old this week.
Can't believe it.
I can remember going out and buying it with the band cover and everything like that.
It was a new album.
Yeah, so can I. Oh, years ago. Oh, yeah. I don't know what a misspent youth I had. But yeah, it's 26 years old this week, and also yesterday it was Slash's 48th birthday, the lead guitarist of what used to be Guns N' Roses in the original lineup. So if I played in with that, I'm going to play out with Think About You, which obviously it all ties in with Byron.
Yes.
Byromania, whatever you want to call it.
Appetite for Destruction.
Appetite for Destruction, yeah. Okay, so thank you for joining me, folks, today on the show. Next week we're back to usual, 10-minute clean-up and everything else. Be good. If you can't be good, be careful. And I'll see you next week at 4 o'clock. Mr. Paul Hartley is on next.